Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, I'm Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. When I was in university, I used to have about 8 to 10 pen pals. You may or may not be aware of what a pen pal happens to be, but back when I was in university, the internet as we know it today simply didn't exist. And yet, growing up in Mumbai, I was curious to know more about the world. Which is why when a friend of mine handed me a brightly colored form, this was the pen pal form, I was instantly hooked. That form would enable me to join a pen pal service. And this was based somewhere in Greece. Those Greek entrepreneurs would then take your money and they would put your details in a database and they would link you to other people, kids like you, all over the world. In a short while, I was writing to Hong Kong, Italy, the UK, Germany, and the United States. I was hooked. I could write to a complete stranger across the planet, and incredibly, they would write back. Unfortunately, that's not how it works when it comes to the business world. A client might buy a product or service from you, and then you might write to that client asking for feedback about that product or service, and you get nothing in response. You may even follow up, but still, you're getting no reply. So is it you? Is it the quality of your questions? Or is it something else? There are many reasons why clients don't respond to your email or to your query. But in this podcast, we'll cover the 3 big reasons why they don't respond, even having bought your product, even having bought your service. So what are the 3 reasons? The first is that they don't trust you to do anything with their response. The second is your question format is much too complex and definitely time-consuming. And the third is they intend to get to it, but other issues are more urgent. So how do we go about getting some sort of feedback from our clients, if not from every single client? Have you ever had restaurant staff ask you, "How's the food?" Yesterday we went for dinner at our now favorite Indian restaurant. We've been going to dinner to that place almost since the day they started, and sometimes even twice a week. With so much frequency comes a factor of familiarity. It means that we know the staff well, and they in turn know us. As always, we had our meal, and then the inevitable question shows up. We get to the counter, and the person behind the counter says, "How was the food?" So I said, frankly, it was disappointing. And I knew I'd made a mistake the moment I responded, because there's something weird about restaurants. They expect you to become an instant critic. They expect you to explain exactly what's off, what's not right. Now, I'm pretty polished with my Indian food because I cook Indian food frequently, as in every single day. Which is why it's not very hard for me to give a response, to give some kind of critique on that food. Even so, the reaction I got from the staff member was very tepid. "I'll tell the chefs," he said. You see the problem, don't you? They're going to tell the chefs. Right. But how does that change my situation? I don't just go out to eat, I go out for an experience. I can cook just as well, if not better food, at home. So yes, the guy behind the counter would go and tell the chefs. But what would that do for me? How would it change my experience? How would it change it right now or in the future? The food wasn't that great anyway. So this is the problem that we run into when we ask for feedback. Our audience is a lot like a dinner guest, or like dinner guests. You've asked for their feedback, and they believe that you're going to do diddly squat with that information. They probably trust you, they like you, but they don't think you're going to do much with that feedback that they're giving. Which is why the default response mechanism is to completely ignore your request for any sort of feedback. Plus, the audience knows that you're not asking for praise, you're not asking for testimonials. The audience knows that they have to say not so kind things about you when they give you feedback. Feedback is jarring. Feedback is telling someone that whatever they've done is not good enough. We've all tried to give feedback when people have asked for feedback. And all you seem to get after giving feedback is this instant defensiveness. This person asking the question should be saying, "Oh, thank you very much," but you get this defensiveness and it drives you crazy. But as a client, you feel even more helpless because you think, well, I'm just one person, they're not going to listen to me. And if they listen, they're not going to do anything. So we default to doing nothing. But there's a way to make clients eager to give feedback. If you look at the Psychotactics site or the membership site at 5000BC, you'll notice something quite interesting. There's a bug on the site, and this is an actual cartoon of a bug, and it asks you not only to give feedback, but it gives you a reward. In the past, we've offered a $50 voucher for the best bug of the month. But in recent months, we've taken it out as we transition to a new site. When you get to the new site, you see that every bug enables you to get a bunch of postcards, really nice cartoon postcards. These aren't just general postcards, they're really nice postcards. They cost like $2 or $3 to just produce each of these postcards. And you can collect a set over time just giving us feedback. And of course, you get the postcards. But there is also the chance of getting a bar of chocolate from New Zealand. It's not the reward that the clients are going for. It's what the reward suggests. You know what it suggests, right? It's saying almost instantly that we're happy to receive feedback. And we're so happy that we will respond to your request, to your feedback with a reward. And that's one level of feedback for anything that's wrong with the site or anything that requires our attention. Which is why clients use that bug. They click on that link, they send in the bug. They send in 200, 300, 500 bugs a year. You would think that being in business for so many years, and we've been going since 2000, so that's almost 18 years, you would think, okay, you've removed all the bugs from the system. But no, every single day you will get a bug or two. Little things, little grammatical errors, little something doesn't display well. You constantly get these bugs. And usually we'll get 1 or 2 bugs, which means about 700 pieces of feedback. And not all of them are tiny changes. Some of them are considerable. Some involve a decent amount of pain on our part. But it's feedback, and most of it has been extremely worth it. Once we put the wrong price on the site, that would have cost us thousands of dollars. That got fixed. Another time, we put the wrong dates for the article writing course. That got fixed. So there are all of these little things that clients write into, things that offend them, things that they could change, things that they would like to see. And at all times, you want to encourage them. You want them to write in. You want them to tell you what could be fixed. However, it's not enough to just get the feedback. So the way we go about it is we make a note of it, we fix it, then we respond. Just the other day, a member of 5000BC wrote in with a series of fixes that were needed in one of my articles. I had written that article at one go, so I didn't proofread the article, but that was my fault. So she wrote in with at least 10 fixes, and she said, no response required. Even when a client says no response required, we thank them for their feedback, we fix it, and then we send the client to see the fix. You see what's happening, right? The client doesn't think to themselves, this is a waste of my time. They don't think he's going to tell the chef. They realize that their feedback has not only been accepted, but it has been accepted with a lot of grace. It has been attended to, it has been fixed, and somehow that has improved their future experience. So now the client is beginning to trust you. They know that the reason that you're asking for feedback is because you'll fix the feedback and you'll possibly reward them as well. Often just the fix is the reward, but there's not a reason in the world why you can't do a little bit more. It doesn't cost that much to send a postcard, to send a thank you note, to send a little chocolate from your part of the world to another part of the world. It's a brilliant moment to connect with a client. There's no reason why you shouldn't do that. They've taken the time. You should respond. Now, this same concept applies in the article writing course or any other courses that we do. Again, we've been doing this for so long. You'd think, well, all the problems have been fixed, but they haven't. And clients know that there is an ability to give feedback. The daily assignment that they do is already a means for us to go back and forth. But even with over 10 to 15,000 interactions. So what happens in a course is that you have about 25 people doing the course, and yet they generate about 10,000 posts in the forum. So that's a very high volume of contact, of feedback, of assignments. And yet there are so many things to fix. Now, we've been conducting the article writing course since 2006. And as I said, it's been an average of 25 people on every course. So you can safely say that about 250 clients have finished this course. Right through the course, they have every right to stop, to slow down the course. Because what we do is we keep buffer weeks just in case the clients need more time to work on their project. In almost every course, clients suggest that we make a change, we extend a concept for a few weeks. This might sound like a nightmare to you if you're trying to teach a course or you're trying to deliver a product, but usually everyone seems to struggle at approximately the same point. So having that buffer and then being able to take that feedback is very critical. And as if that were not enough, at the end of the course, they're supposed to write about 800 to 1,000 words on what they would fix and how they would possibly fix it. Now you take 250 clients and you multiply that by 1,000 words and you have 250,000 words of feedback. And bear in mind, this is a single course. While all of these numbers are very impressive, notice the underlying concept. Whether you're in 5000 BC, you're doing a course, or at a psychotactics workshop, or just on the site browsing, you are being hit with many reasons you can write in, many reasons why you can give your opinion. Compare this with so many other sites, and you'll find that people have literally been hiding their email addresses. That's because they want no contact with you. And if you happen to have any contact, like my friend at the Indian restaurant, we get zero benefit, no reward, just a sad puppy face look. Clients need to trust that you'll do something with their feedback. If they don't get constant signals, there is no way that they're going to respond. They have tried before. Wait, you've tried before. All you and I get when we give feedback is an idiotic mumble or even anger or frustration from the other side. So we've learned to keep our opinions to ourselves. However, you can get your clients to give you feedback, to give it frequently. Now you might think that you're going to be inundated with complaints, but that's hardly the case. Instead, what you do is you get to fix these issues on your site, in your product, in your service. You get a chance to make it better, and you connect with the client, and they love you for your proactive behavior. What did it cost you? Your time. It probably cost you a bar of chocolate. It cost you a few postcards. But it helps you fix your product or your service, and it establishes a trust factor with the client. However, that's only the first problem with feedback. There's also the format, and that can drive people crazy almost instantly. Why do formats matter? Let's find out. What do you like about your city? Good question, right? There's a chance that if you're living in that city, there are lots of things that you like. But when someone asks you an open-ended question like that, it's very hard to respond. When someone says, how was your meal, or how's the software, or how was the experience, what we do is we give generic answers. And that's because how are you going to compress everything that you felt or tasted or experienced? How are you going to put all that into a single answer, a one-line answer? Also, the reason for this non-specific feedback is you're not asking specific questions. Because how am I supposed to answer? How's the food? Well, it was fine. What do you want me to say? But if you look at a website like Amazon.com and they have that subsidiary, which is Audible.com, you'll notice that they have specific questions. So the questions fall into categories. And that enables people to focus on that specific category. Not just on how was the experience, but how was the recording? How was the pace? So these are subcategories. And people are able to say, okay, I understand this category. I'm going to talk about it. Let's take the example of the audio version of the Brain Audit. This happens to be on Audible.com. When you pay close attention to the clients that are giving the feedback, notice what they're saying. Notice how they're getting fussy. But what are they getting fussy about? If you look closely, they're getting a bit upset about the jingle, and this jingle shows up on a frequent basis. When you read the feedback from at least a few of the listeners, the jingle seems to be the problem that recurs. One of the reasons why clients tend to give precise feedback is because Amazon is asking for feedback, but they're never asking you to take more than a small step at a time. So when you're listening to the product or reading a product, even if you buy something for them, they ask you to give them a star rating. So you say, okay, that's simple. I can just click on the star. And when you get to that star and you click on the star, it takes you to their site. Then it takes you to the next step. Now, given that small series of steps, you're likely or more likely to go forward. And then they ask you these questions in subcategories or categories. And what happens as a result is you're taking all these steps, they're asking you to focus on specific things, and you're able to give specific feedback. Amazon is not alone. If you go to TripAdvisor, they will ask you to break up your feedback in terms of location, comfort, all kinds of things. And it's this sort of format that causes the client to examine that small portion of their product, of their service. It's much easier for you and I to think of these small segments, and when things are easy, they usually get done. But this kind of feedback is also important when you're asking for things like, how is my website? So let's say you need feedback on a sales page on your website. Maybe you've just completed it and now you need friends or even clients to take a look and let you know what is wrong, what could be fixed. Almost immediately, you've set up a situation for overwhelm. A single sales page has so many elements. The brave ones will rip through the page, they'll give you their critiques, but most of the people will just avoid the task. And if you said, okay, don't give me any feedback about the sales page. Maybe you did it like Amazon did it, and you say, okay, let's do this little step, which is just give me the feedback on the headline itself. Now you're asking for something small. You're asking for something manageable. Do you think they'll do that? Of course they will. And once you get them to do that first step, you've also got them involved, and they're likely to take a second step and a third step. You'll be pleasantly surprised at how much feedback you can get if you break up things into small, manageable steps. But also have that first step. Also have the categories. That makes such a big difference. At the start of this podcast, I asked, do you love your city? Well, I like living in Auckland. I like living in Auckland a lot. In fact, I don't like to leave it. But recently, I tried to contribute to a better Auckland, and the Auckland City Council sent me a form. Almost immediately, it looked intimidating. It looked like it was not worth my time. There was also the issue that we dealt with in point 1, which is, I'm not entirely sure I trust them to read, let alone implement the feedback. So guess what happens next? The vast majority of the public will not fill in their form. And so Auckland will not get the feedback that it seeks. And there you have it. 2 reasons. The first is I don't trust you that much to do stuff because you haven't shown that trust. You haven't done anything in the past to make me feel like you're going to do anything. You're just going to pass on the information to the chef. And what is the chef going to do with it? No one knows. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is the format. If you don't get me to do a little step, then, well, it's a big step and I'm not going to do it. If you don't do your homework, you don't break it up into compartments or into sections so that I can focus on one section at a time, again, I'm not going to do it. So those are the first 2 reasons, but there is a third, and it's called follow-up. And you know what follow-up is, right? Anyway, let's take a short stab at it in the third part of this podcast. Have you ever noticed how hard some people knock on the door when they're trying to get you to join some religion or trying to sell you something? So they'll knock on the door, and then they'll knock harder, and then they'll knock really hard. And you're like, ah. So yeah, we get it. That level of knocking, that level of follow-up is clearly over the top. But when it comes to getting feedback, a simple follow-up and then even more follow-ups might be needed. Often it's not that people don't want to give you feedback. It's just that they're not overly upset with your product or service. They actually like it. They don't feel like it warrants a full-blown reply. So they wait, they put off the feedback, they wait until later, and a later like that almost never shows up. So then it's up to you. Follow up and then follow up at least a few times, and you start to get a response. If not, maybe there is something wrong with the system of getting feedback. And if you're not getting feedback, you may as well use the opportunity to ask, what's wrong with the feedback system itself? As we covered in point 1 and point 2, some of the things need to be tidied up, some of the things need to be cleaned up before you're even getting the feedback, before you're even following up with that feedback. Take, for example, the workshop that we're having on landing pages. So before we have the workshop, we always send out stuff that people need to do, people need to prepare, and now these are people who have already paid a substantial amount of money. They're going to travel to a place. You think, well, they would be the first ones to respond to whatever it is, to give you the feedback, to give you the answers. But that's not always the case. And so when we send out the questionnaire, we get some people responding. So we sent out a questionnaire and it had only 3 questions. And out of that, say 90% of them responded, but then the last 10%, they needed follow-up. And so we have to make that list and we have to follow up. But we also had to look at things like, okay, could we just ask this with a yes and no question? Could we just put a little red button that they clicked on? And it was amazing. Well, not really amazing, but it's much easier to click on one red button than to answer 3 questions. That's probably going to take you 10 or 15 minutes. So sometimes it's how you construct it that enables it. And sometimes it's the follow-up, but most often you're going to have to do some level of follow-up. And that's pretty much it. That's how feedback works. It's a lot of follow-up, it's a lot of design, it's a lot of timing. Did I say timing? Yes, timing. Feedback works best right after an event, right after someone has bought something from you, or even before people say goodbye, like on a course. And I don't have to tell you this, once the days slip into weeks and weeks into months, even the most diligent of clients, they aren't likely to give you feedback. So you need to prepare yourself in advance so that when your product or your service goes out, that feedback portion is also ready. And it needs to be ready the moment that it's needed. And this brings us to the end of this podcast. So what did we cover? 3 things. The first reason why people don't give you feedback is that they don't trust you. They don't trust you to do anything with it. They don't trust you to do anything with their response. They'll think, well, this person is just saying, I'll tell the chefs. And he's not even going to tell the chefs. He's just going to say that to you. So you're going to go, well, I'm not going to give you feedback in future. And if I have the opportunity to go to another restaurant, to another place, to buy another product or service, that's what I'm going to do. So it kind of gets people slightly irritated as well because you aren't considering their feedback. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that your question format is much too complex. It's much too time consuming. So you haven't gone through and thought, how are people responding to this? Or how are they supposed to respond to it? That's what Amazon does. It gets you to do one thing. What is the one thing that you can get them to do? Is it just a big red button that they have to click, which then gets them to do the second thing and then the third thing? Have you thought about the different aspects of your product, of your service? Have you just asked them, hey, give me feedback about the website? No. How about the headline? What about the testimonials? You can break everything up into small sections and get clients, get friends, get colleagues to give you feedback based on the work that you've put in so that their life is easier. And then they will give you feedback. And finally, you have to have a follow-up system in place. If it's worth asking for feedback, it's worth following up. But that's true for everything in life. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. So what is the one thing that you can do today? The one thing that you can do today is look at the compartments. Say the website, for instance. What are the different aspects of the sales page of your website? Again, we have headline, we have the PS, we have the pricing grid. You have all of these elements. No one is going to spend their time going through all of the elements. So what are the compartments in your product, your service, your course, whatever it is you're doing? Can you break them up? Of course you can. That's what we do with our online courses, offline courses. We ask, how is your dealing with the forum? What about the group? How about the audio? How about the video? How about the text? All of these are compartments. And you can do this because whether you're creating a product or a service or you have a product or a service, there are going to be compartments. What are those compartments? Can you make a list? You can do that, can't you? So go ahead and do that. And that would be a very good starting to the day and a very good start to getting feedback. And often I have to take my own advice. For instance, it's so easy to say, what's your feedback for this podcast? Well, that's very hard for you to handle. But what if I asked you one question? And you can answer this. Just email me at Sean@psychotactics.com. Just tell me, is it good enough? As in 20, 25 minutes, is that good? Or would you like the podcast to be like 1 hour? Can you do that? 25 minutes or 1 hour? What would you prefer? That's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now. But wait. We still have to deal with Psychotactics Land. What's happening there in Psychotactics Land? You know that we're the land of the 3-month vacation. So we will be on vacation. So right after we finish our workshops in Singapore and Brussels, we're going to Italy, North Italy. This is the 4th time we're going to Italy. And we cover not a lot, 3-4 places in the 3 or 4 weeks that we're there. But what's coming up right after that is the article writing course. We also have the cartooning course. We also have other things like uniqueness and stuff like that. So if you want to learn more, if you want to increase your skill capacity, then you have to start taking some steps in that direction. And one of the things that you can do is you can make sure that you don't have chaos. So if you go to psychotactics.com and get yourself this copy of Chaos Planning, you will find that you're able to plan your day a lot better and you're not so overwhelmed, which is what a lot of people say. They say, I have no time to listen to this podcast. I have no time to read the newsletter. I have no time to do this and no time to do that. And yet, there are people that are doing all of that and twice as much. And that is because they plan their lives differently. And that's what Chaos Planning will help you do. So go to psychotactics.com/chaos and get a bit of that overwhelm to go away from you, far away from you. As always, join us in 5000 BC. As you know, it's a really cool place full of introverts. You can get to ask your questions, you get the answers. And that's pretty much it from Psychotactics Land. We're about 10 days away from our vacation. one of the things that you probably know about is that we tend to pack 4 days in advance. So we pretend that our flight is leaving 4 days in advance, which means that if the flight's leaving on, say, Thursday, then we're packed by Sunday. And that gives us this downtime. It kind of lets us relax before we get on the plane. So that's the goal, and I think we're going to get there. I'll see you in 5000 BC. I'll say bye for now. Don't forget to send me that feedback, 20 minutes or 1 hour. Send that email right now if you can to Sean@psychotactics.com. Thanks, and bye for now.